You're surrounded by people who think intelligence is about grades, degrees, credentials. They're wrong. Dangerous intelligence has nothing to do with what you memorized in school. It has nothing to do with how fast you solve equations or how many languages you speak. Dangerous intelligence is the ability to see the game, while everyone else is still looking for the rules. It's the intelligence that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't perform. It calculates. And while you've been busy trying to prove how smart you are, someone with half your education and twice your ruthlessness has already taken the position you thought you deserved. Because they understood something you didn't. Intelligence without execution is just expensive entertainment. You can have the highest IQ in the room and still be the most exploited person in it. You can solve complex problems and still get manipulated by someone who barely graduated high school. Why? Because dangerous intelligence isn't cognitive. It's predatory. It's the ability to read a room in 3 seconds and know exactly who holds real power and who's just pretending. It's the skill of letting someone talk themselves into a corner while you smile and nod. It's the discipline to wait 6 months for the perfect moment instead of acting on impulse today. Most people think they're playing chess when they're actually playing checkers against someone who's playing poker. And they wonder why they keep losing. Today, you're going to learn the 8 rules that separate the predators from the prey, the architects from the pawns, the ones who shape reality from the ones who merely react to it. But let me be clear, this isn't for everyone. If you're still attached to being liked, close this now. If you need everyone to understand your intentions, you're not ready. If you think being good means being weak, you've already disqualified yourself. Dangerous intelligence is immoral. It's a scalpel. It can be used to heal or to harm. The wielder determines the outcome. You determine the outcome. So the question isn't whether you'll learn these rules. The question is whether you have the stomach to apply them when your niceness, your reputation, your need to be seen as ethical is begging you to stay soft. Let's find out. Rule 1. Never telegraph competence. You're walking around showing everyone what you can do. Stop. Every skill you reveal is a weakness someone can exploit. Every capability you demonstrate is a limit someone can measure. Every time you prove how smart you are, you're giving them the exact blueprint of how to contain you. Here's what you don't understand. The moment people know what you're capable of, they start building cages sized exactly to your abilities. You show them you're great at solving problems? Congratulations. You're now the designated problem solver. Which means while everyone else is advancing, you're stuck fixing other people's messes because you're so good at it. You demonstrate your technical expertise. Perfect. You've just locked yourself into a technical role while people with half your knowledge get promoted to leadership because they spent their time building relationships instead of showing off. You reveal that you can handle pressure? Excellent. Here's more pressure. And more, until you break. Because they know you can take it. You told them you could. You played yourself. Let me take you back. You're 6 years old. Teacher asks a question. You know the answer? Your hand shoots up. You're desperate to show that you know that you're smart, that you're worthy of recognition. That instinct? That's the instinct that will destroy your career. Because what you learned in that classroom was this: performance of knowledge equals reward. But that was a lie designed for children. In the real world, the person who knows the answer and stays silent while everyone else struggles has more power than the person who blurts it out immediately. Why? Because while they're all fumbling, you're learning who's competent and who's faking. You're seeing who panics under pressure and who stays calm. You're gathering intelligence about everyone in the room. And when you finally speak, when you've let them exhaust all their bad ideas first, your solution doesn't just solve the problem. It makes you indispensable. But you waited. You let them see what happens without you. You let them feel the gap. Now they need you. But they don't know the full extent of what you can do. They just know you solved what they couldn't. That's leverage. Here's a scenario. You're in a new job. First week, you're capable of doing the work of 3 people. You know it. The temptation is to prove it immediately. To show them they hired the right person, to demonstrate value. Resist. Do good work, solid work. But don't show them everything. Not yet. Because the moment you perform at 100%, that becomes your new baseline. Now you have to maintain that forever just to be seen as doing your job. And the moment you slip, even slightly, you're underperforming. But if you perform at 70% initially and gradually increase to 80%, then 90%, you're not working harder. You're actually working less than your capacity. But everyone sees growth. Everyone sees improvement. Everyone sees someone who's really stepping up. Same effort, different perception, completely different outcome. The people who rise fastest aren't the most capable. They're the ones who reveal capability strategically. They let people underestimate them. They let people think they're still learning. And while everyone's guard is down, while everyone's focused on the people who are loudly performing, they're quietly building infrastructure, relationships, and leverage. And by the time people realize what happened, it's too late. The underestimated person is now the indispensable one. Never show your full hand. When someone asks what you're capable of, smile and say, "I'm still figuring that out." When someone wants to know your limits, shrug and say, "I haven't found them yet." Not because you're being coy, but because the moment you define your ceiling, you've trapped yourself under it. And here's the part that will bother you. This means letting people think you're less capable than you are. It means biting your tongue when someone takes credit for your idea. It means watching someone else get praise for work you could do better. Your ego will hate this. Good. Your ego is not your friend. Your ego wants immediate gratification, immediate recognition, immediate validation. Your ego is playing a game that ends tomorrow. Dangerous intelligence is playing a game that ends in 5 years. And in 5 years, when you're running the organization and the person who needed immediate validation is still stuck in the same role, desperately performing for scraps of recognition, you'll understand why you stayed silent. Rule 3. Weaponize agreeability. You think being agreeable makes you weak. Amateur mistake. Being disagreeable makes you visible. Being agreeable makes you invisible. And invisible people see everything. Here's what happened. You watched some podcast, read some book, got told that successful people are disruptors who challenge the status quo. So now you're the person in meetings who always has a contrarian opinion. The person who always plays devil's advocate. Congratulations. You're predictable. And predictable people are controllable. Because everyone knows exactly how you'll react. Dangerous intelligence understands that agreeability is camouflage. When you agree with people, they stop watching you. They stop seeing you as a threat. They start talking freely around you because you're one of the team. And while they're comfortable, while their guard is down, you're collecting everything, every complaint, every ambition, every insecurity, every power struggle. They tell you because you don't judge. You just nod. You just say, I understand where you're coming from. Let me paint you a scene. You're in a meeting. Someone proposes a terrible idea. Everyone knows it's terrible. But it's the boss's idea, or it's politically sensitive. The disagreeable person speaks up. I don't think that will work because X, Y, Z. Everyone else is rolling their eyes because now there's tension. Now there's conflict. Now the meeting derails into an argument. Watch what the dangerous intelligence does. They smile. They nod. They say, that's an interesting approach. I think it could work if we address a few potential challenges. Notice, no direct opposition, no ego threat. Just gentle redirection framed as support. Then they ask questions. How do we handle X? What's our backup plan for Y? They're not arguing. They're just asking reasonable questions. And each question slowly reveals why the idea won't work. 10 minutes later, the boss themselves says, actually, maybe we need to rethink this. Same outcome, zero conflict, full credit. But it goes deeper. When you're agreeable, people tell you things. They confide in you. They share their frustrations, their plans, their fears. Why? Because you're safe. You don't judge. You don't lecture. You just listen. Except you're not just listening. You're building a database. Person A complains about person B. You nod sympathetically. Person B complains about person A. You do the same thing. Now you know both sides of a conflict. You know what each person wants, what they fear, what they're willing to compromise on. And if you ever need to resolve that conflict or exploit it, you have everything you need. The disagreeable person knows none of this, because nobody tells the disagreeable person anything sensitive. But the agreeable person is everyone's therapist. And therapists have power, not because they talk, but because they listen while everyone else confesses. Rule 4. Master conditional loyalty. You're loyal to people. That's your first mistake. Dangerous intelligence is loyal to systems. People change. People betray. People get promoted, fired, corrupted, compromised. If you tie your loyalty to individuals, you're building on sand. But if you tie your loyalty to principles, to outcomes, to strategic positions, you become unmovable. Let me show you how this plays out. You're working under a manager. Good manager. You respect them. You're loyal to them. Then they get promoted till not moved, fired, quit. Now what? If your loyalty was to them personally, you're lost. You're Manager X's person. And whoever comes next doesn't trust you because they know your allegiance was to someone else. You're politically homeless. But if your loyalty was to the function, to the mission, to the outcome, then it doesn't matter who's in charge. New manager comes in. You don't mourn the old one publicly. You just say, here's what we've been working on. Here's where we're trying to go. How can I support your vision? You transferred your loyalty seamlessly. Because it was never personal to begin with. That's conditional loyalty. Organizations are battlegrounds. There are factions, alliances, rivalries. People constantly trying to recruit you to their side. Are you Team A or Team B? The loyal person picks a side. And when that side loses, and someone always loses, they go down with the ship. The conditionally loyal person says, I'm team outcome. Whoever helps us achieve the outcome has my support. They support whoever is currently aligned with the goal. And if that person stops being aligned, if they become an obstacle, the conditionally loyal person's support evaporates. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly redirected. Suddenly they're too busy to take that meeting. Suddenly they're not sure that's the best approach. And the person who thought they had their loyalty is confused. I thought we were aligned. You were. Until you weren't. That's not betrayal. That's adaptation. Let me give you a specific scenario. You're allied with person A. They've been good to you, but they make a catastrophic mistake. Political suicide. The loyal person stands by them. I don't abandon people. Noble. Stupid. Because now you're going down with them. The conditionally loyal person makes a different calculation. Can person A recover? Is there a path back? If no, if they're done, you're done too. Not out of cruelty, out of survival. You stop returning calls as quickly. You're suddenly very busy. And when the dust settles, when person A is gone, you're still there, unscathed. Person A might feel betrayed. They might call you disloyal. Let them, because they would have done the same thing if the positions were reversed. Or they wouldn't have, and that's why they lost. Loyalty is a tool, not a virtue. You deploy it strategically. You give it to people who earn it through aligned action, not through history or sentiment. And you withdraw it the moment it stops serving the mission. Rule 5. Control through absence. You're always available. That's why nobody values you. Dangerous intelligence understands that scarcity creates value, and presence creates contempt. You're the person who responds to every email immediately, who takes every meeting, who's always willing to help. You think this makes you valuable. It makes you furniture. Furniture is useful. Furniture is necessary. But nobody thinks about furniture until it's gone. You want to be valued? Be scarce. Not randomly, not unpredictably, strategically. When you're always available, people stop appreciating your availability. It becomes expected. It becomes baseline. And when something is baseline, it's invisible. So make yourself missing. Occasionally. Don't respond to that email for 24 hours, even though you saw it. Wait, don't take that meeting. You're booked. Don't volunteer for that project. Let someone else step in. Let them struggle. Let them realize it's harder than it looked. And then, when they come back to you, because they will, you have leverage. Now your help isn't free. Now it's a favor. Now they owe you. But if you just said yes immediately, like you always do, it would have been expected. No favor, no debt, no leverage. You played yourself. Here's what this looks like in practice. You're working with a client. They email you constantly. Small questions, random thoughts. If you respond every time, immediately, you train them that you're always on call. You've set a precedent that your time has no value. But if you batch your responses, if you respond once a day at a specific time, you've established a boundary. And the fascinating thing? They don't get angry. They adapt. Because scarcity signals value. If you're hard to reach, you must be important. You must be busy with important things. But this only works if you're scarce and excellent. If you're scarce and mediocre, you're just lazy. People will route around you. But if you're scarce and when they finally get access to you, you deliver exceptional value. Now you're premium. That's power. And it works in relationships too. You're always the person who texts first, who initiates plans, who makes the effort. Stop. Pull back. Not forever. Just enough to create a gap. Watch what happens. If the relationship was real, the other person will notice and reach out. But if they don't, if your absence goes unnoticed, you just learned the relationship was one-sided. Here's the deeper principle. Your presence should be earned, not assumed. When your presence is assumed, it has no value. But when your presence is earned, when people have to qualify for your time and attention, suddenly it means something. The most dangerous version of this: strategic withdrawal during conflict. Someone's angry at you, wants to fight. Don't. Go silent. Not blocked, not dramatic. Just unavailable. Let them scream into the void. Let their anger exhaust itself with no target. And when you finally re-engage, on your timeline, not theirs, the power dynamic has completely shifted. They burned energy. You conserved it. They showed desperation. You showed control. That's a different conversation than the one they tried to start. Rule 6. Eliminate emotional broadcast you're leaking. Every reaction on your face, every shift in your tone, every change in your posture. You're broadcasting your internal state like a radio tower. And everyone with eyes is receiving the signal. They know when they've gotten to you. They know what bothers you. They know your triggers, your fears, your desires. And they're using all of it. Dangerous intelligence understands that emotional opacity is tactical superiority. When people can't read you, they can't calibrate. They don't know if their attack landed. They don't know if their offer is appealing. They're flying blind. And people flying blind make mistakes. They reveal more than they intended. They negotiate against themselves because they're not getting the feedback they need. Let me show you how this works. You're in a salary negotiation. The number they offer is lower than you wanted. Your face falls. Just for a second. They saw it. Now they know you were expecting more. Now they have information about your expectations that you didn't verbally give them. But watch the person with dangerous intelligence. They hear the number. Their face doesn't change at all. They pause. I see. That's it. No reaction. No tells. Now the other side is uncomfortable. Did the number land well? Was it too low? They don't know. So they start talking. Of course, there's room for discussion. They're negotiating against themselves because they got no feedback. The emotionally opaque person just gained ground without saying a word. That's the power of the blank face. But this goes deeper than negotiations. You're in a meeting. Someone criticizes your work. It stings. The emotional broadcaster's face tightens. Their jaw clenches. Everyone sees it. Now they know they got to you. Now you've lost status because you let them see you bleed. The person with dangerous intelligence hears the criticism. Their expression doesn't change. They nod slightly. Interesting perspective. That's all. No defense, no reaction, just acknowledgement. Now the critic is off balance. Did their criticism land? Do you care? You're not going to tell them. This isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about deciding which emotions to display and when. You can be emotional when it serves you. When showing vulnerability builds connection. When showing anger establishes a boundary. But it's a choice, not a leak. Most people's emotions leak because they've never trained the gap between feeling and expressing. Feel anger? Automatically look angry. Feel hurt? Automatically look hurt. Fully automated. Zero control. Dangerous intelligence installs a manual override. Feel anger? Pause. Is expressing it strategic right now? No? Then smile. Feel hurt? Pause. Is showing vulnerability to this person safe? No? Then stay neutral. You choose the broadcast. And here's what happens over time. People start describing you with words like unflappable, composed, hard to read. They say it like it's mysterious. It's just discipline. But the real advantage isn't just hiding your emotions. It's that people project onto blank screens. When you don't react, people fill in the gap with their own fears. They think you're angry when you're calm. They think you're scheming when you're bored. Their imagination becomes your weapon. Rule 7. Architect. Plausible deniability. You're taking credit for everything you do. Rookie error. Because the moment you're attached to an action, you're attached to the consequences. Dangerous intelligence understands that the most powerful moves are the ones nobody can trace back to you. Not because you're hiding, but because when there's no trail, there's no accountability. And when there's no accountability, there's no retaliation. Let me explain how this works. You want a bad initiative to die. You could oppose it directly. Stand up in a meeting, make your case. And if you're wrong, or if it has political support you didn't see, you're now the person who opposed it. That follows you. Or you could do this. Casually mention to the right person, in private, that the initiative might conflict with another priority they care about. Just a question. Just a thought. Hey, I was thinking about Project X. Doesn't that overlap with Project Y, which you're leading? You didn't oppose anything. You just asked a question. But you asked it to someone who now has a personal reason to oppose Project X. And when they kill Project X, nobody thinks of you. Plausible deniability. You shaped the outcome. But your fingerprints are nowhere. This works because most people are obsessed with visible credit. That's ego, not strategy. Strategy is about outcomes, not credit. You want someone to take an action? Don't ask them directly. Instead, create conditions where taking that action becomes their idea. Plant the seed, water it, wait. And when they do it, when they think it was their idea all along, they commit to it fully, full ownership, zero credit to you, perfect. Here's a concrete example. You're working with someone who's making a strategic mistake. If you tell them directly, they'll get defensive. They'll resist. But if you ask questions, have you thought about X? What's your plan for Y? You're not telling them they're wrong. You're making them discover they're wrong. And when they discover it themselves, they change course without feeling defeated. And you? You were just asking helpful questions. Nothing to see here. This principle extends to conflict. Direct confrontation creates enemies. Even if you win, the other person remembers. They wait for payback. But if you maneuver situations so that consequences come from neutral sources, from policy, from other people, from circumstances, there's nobody to blame. You're clean. And the beautiful part? You can even sympathize with them. Yeah, that policy is frustrating. You're bonding over the obstacle you engineered. That's advanced. Rule 8. Execute without announcement. You're telling people what you're going to do. Stop talking. Dangerous intelligence doesn't announce plans. It delivers results. Because every time you tell someone what you're planning, you're giving them the opportunity to stop you, copy you, or undermine you. Here's what happens. You have an idea. It's good. You're excited. So you tell people, I'm thinking about doing X. I'm planning to start Y. And they nod. They say, that's great. And then they watch. They wait to see if you'll actually do it. And most of the time, you don't. Because announcing creates a false sense of accomplishment. You got the validation, the interest. Your brain registered that as a reward. So now the pressure to actually execute is lower. That's why talkers stay talkers. But even worse, the smart people you told. They took your idea and executed it while you were still planning. They didn't announce. They just moved. You gave away the game. Dangerous intelligence operates differently. Idea appears. You evaluate it privately. You test it quietly. You build it in silence. And then, when it's done, when it's real, When it's undeniable, you reveal it, not as a plan, as a fact. This is live. This is running. This is operational. Now people can't stop you. It's too late. Now they can't steal it. It's already yours. The results speak. This is how you move when you understand that execution beats intention every single time. Nobody cares about your plans. Nobody cares about your vision. They care about what exists. And what exists is what you built while they were talking about building. Let me show you how this plays in a professional context. You're in an organization. You see an inefficiency. You have an idea to fix it. The announcer goes to meetings, pitches the idea, builds consensus. And 6 months later, the idea is still in committee review. Nothing happened. The executor does this. They build a prototype on their own time, with their own resources. They test it quietly. They prove it works. And then they present it. Not as an idea, as a working solution with measurable results. I've been running this for 2 months. Here's the data. It's reduced processing time by 40%. Want to scale it? Now you're not asking permission. You're offering results, and results are very hard to argue with. The difference? The announcer needed permission. The executor created inevitability. This works in every domain. Want to start a business? Don't tell people you're thinking about it. Build it. Get your first customer. Then tell people when it's real. Want to change careers? Don't announce you're exploring options. Study in silence. Build skills in private. Then tell people when you have the offer. Want to improve yourself? Don't post about your new workout routine, your new diet. Just do them. And 6 months later, when people see the results and ask what you did, then you tell them, miss. But by then, it's not a plan. It's a proven system. The psychology behind this is simple. Announcement creates accountability to others. Execution creates accountability to yourself. When you announce, you're seeking external validation. But external validation is fickle. It disappears the moment things get hard. Internal commitment is different. When you commit privately, when nobody knows but you, when there's no audience, now you're only accountable to yourself. And if you're the kind of person who can commit to yourself, who can do the work when nobody's watching, you become extremely dangerous. Because you're no longer dependent on other people's energy to fuel your execution. You're self-propelling. And self-propelling people are terrifying because they can't be stopped by discouragement, can't be derailed by criticism, can't be slowed by lack of support. They just keep moving. And one day everyone looks up and realizes, when did they build all of that? While you were talking. That's when. You've just learned the 8 rules. But knowing them changes nothing. Applying them changes everything. And here's what you need to understand. These rules will make you uncomfortable. They'll conflict with everything you've been taught about being authentic and transparent. Good. Comfort is for people who've already lost. You're not here to be comfortable. You're here to be effective. So here's your choice. You can close this and go back to being the person who's smart but underutilized, capable but overlooked. Or you can take one rule, just one, and apply it for the next 30 days. Not all 8. 1. Pick the one that made you the most uncomfortable. That's the one you need most. And watch what happens when you stop broadcasting your intelligence and start weaponizing it. When you stop being impressive and start being irreplaceable. When you stop announcing and start executing. Most people won't do this. They'll read it, feel inspired, and change nothing. They'll stay where they are. But you're not most people. because most people don't make it to the end of something like this. You're still here. That means something. It means you're done playing the game you were taught, and you're ready to play the game that actually matters. The game where intelligence isn't measured by what you know. It's measured by what you control. And control doesn't come from being the smartest person in the room. It comes from being the person who sees the room clearly while everyone else is still performing for each other. Welcome to Dangerous Intelligence. Not everyone survives here, but everyone who does wins. Rule 1. Never telegraph competence.